about discernment a lot. Like, you have to know within yourself what is right for you. Nobody else can do that, right? Nobody else can tell you what is right and what is wrong for you. You have to know in your gut, and we have to start getting into that space where we trust our gut feeling. Inherently inside of us, we know the truth. We know what light is. We know what love is. We know what God is, source energy, whatever you want to call it. Again, I know I say I'm a Christian psychic. I'm not about being religious. It's up to you to decide. And I just did a video on that, yesterday about like Jesus and what that means to you. You're the one that has to decide. That being said, it's really, really important right now for people to start using discernment. And what I mean by that is trusting yourself to know what's right and what isn't. Because internally we have like a guidance system that kind of tells us, and I always used to tell my kids when they were little, that funny feeling in your stomach isn't just a funny feeling. That's a Holy Spirit trying to direct you on what's right and wrong and helping you kind of gauge, did you really be doing this? Is this really something that you should do? Is this really something that feels good? This, that, and the other. And I actually was just talking to a couple ladies in Minot the other day, and she said, it was funny because, this had come into my thing and it just didn't, for some reason, just didn't resonate, didn't feel right. And then the more we got to talking about it, she's like, oh, I just got a message from my guides and that's not for me. And I'm like, okay, good. You know what I mean? Like you felt, you tuned into your own self and you are checking to say, this is right for me, this is wrong for me, right? Along with discernment, I have 3 things that I have written down, and I actually made a note because I want to be really clear. I hope you guys are understanding discernment and that I'm explaining it well. And if not, please come back into the Embodied Grace community in Facebook and let's talk about discernment if you don't understand what that is. Because this isn't about being like in discipline or all the words that we don't want to have to deal with, but discernment is huge. It's being in that space of prayer and knowing what's yours and what isn't. And I know the people in my program, we talk about, is this mine? Part of that discernment is understanding, is this feeling that I'm having, like, is this mine? Or did I just pass somebody in Walmart who was cranky and now I feel that way? Because you've been in their energy, right? Because again, everything's energy. We're all on this planet together. Like, everything kind of sometimes gets melded together and it's a big mixing pot. So you've got to know what's mine. Okay, so that's where self-awareness, self-care, all those things come in. But part of self-awareness is discernment. Okay, discernment and discipline sometimes go hand in hand, because if you're discerning what's right for you and what isn't, you may have to have enough discipline to stand up to somebody and say, I'm sorry, but that's not for me. Okay, now on top of that, there's 2 other things that I want to talk about today. My guides have been on me all afternoon. So like whenever I get a message that is really, really prominent, like the back of my head starts to itch. And so my head is just like on fire because I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a fun one to talk about. So can somebody give me a thumbs up if it's resonating, if you guys are making sense with what discernment is, and let me know. I think my screen might be a little bit behind. Anyway, so I'm going to move on from discernment. And what I want to talk about next is trying to decide. There's 2 different things I want to talk about. I'm trying to decide which one is the best one to go with first. Okay, so I'm going to go with this first. So this has been something that's been really interesting to me in all of the years that I've ever been. Like, this isn't just since I've been on this journey of doing this for, for a job or whatever, but like even when I was younger, I can remember people saying, I'm trying to figure out a really good way to say it. But so for me, I've always been raised in the church. I always know that for me, I go directly to God. Now, again, this is not about religion, so we're not going to make it that. Just know that you have to know that you are tapping into the highest and best divine love that you can. So source, the creation energy, like whatever created us, like if nothing else, regardless of a religion, we can agree that something created us, right? And so whatever that term that you want to use it, to me, it's always been Father God. Okay. So, and that is, partly my religious background, whatever, but I've always known, before I even knew church, I've always known that there was a God, right? So again, whatever word you want to use for that. But I've run across this a few times throughout the years. Like, I remember one time a long time ago, somebody was like, "Oh, I want to give you this hug and I want to give you this divine energy." And I'm like, "Sure, can you tell me where it's coming from?" And she's like, "I don't know. I know that I always feel good when this energy comes in and I like to give it to people." And I said, "No, thank you." And I think she was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't want to just accept anything. Like, I need to know where it's coming from, because I'm very locked into knowing that I only work with Jesus and the angels. God is my source, right? And so that's the vibration I want to do. And part of that, I'm going to get into the trickery later, but part of that is, again, knowing self-awareness and knowing discernment. Like, I'm not going to accept anything if somebody doesn't know where it's coming from, right? So, and there's some things out there that are really good, and they are masked as really good things. And it's like, wouldn't it be great to open yourself up to everything that the universe has to offer? Well, that sounds good, but hell no. So excuse my mouth on that, but no, I'm not going to open up. Anytime anybody says that, immediately for me, it's shields up. Like, I am not getting into the energy. That's because, you guys know, I've talked about this before too. There are angels, there are demons. They are both there. They are both real. They are both valid. You know what I mean? So you don't want to accept everything that the universe has to offer, because there's also darkness. So you've got to be, again, in that place of discernment of what are you accepting? Like, what messages? And I tell everybody this, and I'm going to tell it again. I'm going to say it again and say it again. If you're hearing a message from somebody, or if you're working with a teacher and something does not resonate with you, and when I say resonate, okay, here's one of the best ways that I know to help you understand and tune into your own body. Have you ever been like in a concert, like a band concert or something like that, and the music sounds so good, and like you can feel it, you can feel the way it resonates in your body, like you feel it and it sounds good and it feels good, and when somebody hits a wrong note, what does everybody do? Eat, right? You kind of cringe just a little bit because, oh, that just did not feel good, it didn't go right, it doesn't go there, right? That's how discernment is. It's that easy. Like, you've got to be tuned in to know what resonates with you and what doesn't. The thing is, we sometimes talk ourselves out of it. So like in the initial thing, you may go, "Ooh, I don't think I want to do that." And then you're like, "Oh, I'm just being stupid. There's no reason for me not to go." Or quit doing that. Quit doing that to yourself. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. And I mean everything. Like, if you're like, you know, I really need to go to the store and I really need to do this, that, and the other, and then you're doing all your to-do list and all of a sudden you're like, you know, maybe I just shouldn't do this. Then don't. You can always go to the grocery store tomorrow. Like, I know that sounds so crazy, but if you can start practicing discernment in the small things, it makes the other things easier. So again, you guys, I see people on live. Can somebody give me something to let me know that you're still with me and that I'm making sense? So, and I am going to go ahead and put this on YouTube. I was thinking I wouldn't, but I think I will, because I feel like it's that important. So if you're watching the replay on YouTube, just, if you want to talk about it, come over and join us on the Facebook group, and I'll put the link for that in YouTube. But okay, so again, you guys, discernment. Did the resonation make sense of how that feels in your body? And like when it's the wrong note, you know, you kind of get that cringe. It's going to be that simple with discernment. Okay. So discernment is understanding like what resonates, what feels good to you and what doesn't, and just trusting it regardless if it doesn't make sense, because you might talk yourself out of it in your head and be like, no, this is, you know, stupid or whatever, but you have to trust yourself. Okay. The other thing is, always set the intention, no matter what you're doing, always set the intention that you're only accepting the highest and best divine love. Like, that's it. Right. So, just trust that. Like, and I've had Jesus and the angels around since I can remember. Like, I don't ever remember not having them. And I think I said that on another video. I didn't have religion. I had Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, he just has always been around. It resonates with me. I understand God. From the time I was little, I've seen everything. So I've seen the angels, I've seen the demons, I've seen the entities, all of it. They're all there. They're all valid, right? They're all real. But I know I don't want to play with the other ones. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus and the angels and the fairies and the highlight stuff is good, but you've got to be careful because there's so much trickery. Okay. So now discernment, I think we covered pretty well. knowing where the energy is from. So when you're working with somebody, you want to know, where is the energy coming from, right? Because you guys, you all know even the best religions get twisted. Like, and we've all heard of religions that turn into cults and all these things. You've got to trust yourself. You've got to have the intention that you're only going to work with the best, highest divine light. Be in that space of knowing where the energy is coming from. Don't ever accept energy work. Don't ever accept healing, Reiki, anything like that, if you don't know who they're working with, what they're doing. Like, I had a gal one time that, I know this wasn't me, this was somebody else that I know, and she goes, well, she said your angels, she said she was trying to do a Reiki session, but she goes, well, your angels just keep getting in the way. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? She's trying to do this in her own power. Like, that's another good point, you guys, to remind you of. This never comes from us. This is always coming from God. This is always coming from the highest and best divine healing. Like, I've said this over and over. I don't do the healing. I'm just a tool in the toolbox, right? So, like, I ask God and Jesus, the angels, help me. I don't ever do it. This is not healing work that I do. I've been given the gift of being able to be a hammer in the toolbox and help people do the healing that they need. It's never coming from me. And I always say that. Like, everybody I know that I work with says that. So be aware that you don't accept it. If somebody's doing it in their own power, I'd be a little bit leery of that, right? And if they're saying, open up to everything the universe has to offer, that would be my first clue to say, no thanks. I think I'll be sure where I'm getting the divine energy from. And you know, I'm really careful about who I even, you know, get massages from or Reiki from or any of that kind of stuff. You've got to be careful of who you're working with. And again, you guys, I'm not trying to make you afraid. It's just about awareness. Okay. So this isn't fear mongering. This isn't breeding fear. None of that. It's just be aware of what's right for you. Okay. Everybody's on their own path. Everybody's in their own journey. Everybody's, you know, where they need to be for their own soul evolution. But if you're here in my group, I want you to know, be aware, like, be aware of it. Okay. So again, no fear, but just awareness. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is trickery. Now, I think I mentioned this again too in the video I did a couple days ago or whatever, but again, it's important. So about a year ago, I had an experience where, and I'm just going to tell it again. So if you've seen the other YouTube, I'm sorry, but it's got to been at least a year ago, if not longer. And what had happened is I was doing a meditation and I was doing my prayer time and whatever. And I just asked Jesus and Archangel Michael. I just felt like that's who I needed that day. I just felt like I needed Jesus and Archangel Michael to be there. And in that meditation, I was like, okay, that looks like Jesus. It looks like Archangel Michael. Something just doesn't feel right. Like, there was just something that I'm like, no. So I actually called on and I said, I want Jesus of the Bible. I want Jesus of Nazareth to come in. Like, I was very clear so that there was no misinterpretation of what I wanted to help be there with me in that moment. Right. So I wanted that Jesus. I didn't want anything else. And in that moment, as soon as I made that, like, as soon as I trusted myself and used discernment, it was like instantly whatever those two beings were that were trying to be imposters is what they really were. They dissipated into almost like smoke and kind of like wisped away. And I was like, what was that? And what just happened? And then Archangel Michael and Jesus were there and they were like, there's trickery happening. Like, you've got to be, you know, be aware of it, which I'm always in discernment. But you guys, I think if I didn't know any better, I probably would have accepted it. But something in me was like, nope, this isn't right. Like, this does not feel right. Looked right, smelled right, talked right, sounded right. All of those things, like, they were really good. So there's a lot of trickery happening right now. Okay. And again, that was a while ago that I experienced that. But again, I think I experienced it so that I could talk about it now because I'm seeing it everywhere right now. Okay. So be really aware again that entities are real. And demons are real. And again, it's not to make you afraid because you don't have to allow any of that in your space, but you need to be aware of it. Okay. Now they're getting tricky. And, I remember years ago, here's the thing. So a lot of the people in this group are Christian. Now know that even if you're Christian, you're safe because of, like, and one of the best analogies I had is you're safe. So you're kind of in a glass container, but that doesn't mean they can't tap on the glass and mess with you. Okay. So that being said, you've got to remember that entities can you need to pray over your space and put up a boundary so that it's just known that they are not allowed on your property, not on your space, not in your whatever. But know that they are out there everywhere, and they're tricky and they whisper. So what happens is they'll whisper in your ear and say, you know, you don't feel good. And they do it in your own voice. So it makes you feel like maybe you're thinking it, but they're like, oh, you're just tired and you don't feel good today and you shouldn't even get out of bed. And, you know, they put all of these nasty thoughts, right, in your head. And it makes you think that they're yours, but they're not. It's the entities whispering to you. So even if you're a Christian and even if you're saved, that doesn't mean they can't screw with you. So I'm just saying that, like, again, this comes back to discernment and be aware of the trickery. So this is where in my group program and the people that I've worked with one-on-one, I always help them practice, is this mine? And you can do that with the thoughts you have. Is this mine? And that comes back to discernment and your gut and your self-awareness. Like if you hear no, you've got to be like, okay, gone. I'm not dealing with entities. I'm not going to accept it. You know, all of that kind of stuff. So you've got to be in that space of knowing and setting the intention and knowing that you're only working with the highest and best divine light, and that you want to know where the energy is coming from. So don't accept energy from somebody that you don't know where they're getting their energy from. Like if they don't know who they're working with and who their guides are, that would be a flag to me to say, you know, I don't think I'll accept energy from that. The trickery, again, they can come in as imposters. They can make you feel like the thoughts are your own, but they're not. So you've got to be in a space of, is this even my thought? Right? So you guys, again, not to be about fear. Everybody that's watching, is this resonating? Like, do you have any questions? I'll stay on for a minute. If you guys have questions, I can see the thing now. So if you have a question, do it now. And if not, we can come back later and talk about it in the group later. And I think I have a lag because I know earlier it didn't really show. So yes, it's resonating. Do you have any questions? I don't see any questions. I'm getting a lot of hearts that it's resonating, so that's good. So, all right, guys, I think I covered it all. I think that should kind of give you the idea of what I wanted to cover today, what my guides were asking me to speak about. Oh, good. Somebody said I needed to hear this today. So you guys, again, conversation about it. Let's dialogue about it. Let's get into conversation. I feel like this stuff. What is a good way to protect? Okay, so for me, protection is always about prayer, right? So you can go to prayer. You can do, you know, I have this book that's about prayers, and it's John Eckhart. He has a bunch of different books out there. This one is actually, his name is John Eckhart, Eckhart. Before a session, I always pray so for me personally, because I'm Christian, I always say, Father God. That's how I start, because that I want to be sure that I am only connecting with God, because to me, that's what it is. So whatever that is for you, like, you know, that highest, best divine love energy, that is the creator energy that we all know, you know what I mean? Like that highest and best, you have to have that in like intention of only the highest and best. Okay. So for me personally, Father God, I ask that Jesus and the angels surround us in divine grace and love and give us protection during this session, because she asked what's a good way to protect before a session. And you guys, I say this again. So in my membership group, it's kind of a joke because it's like PPP. So you always pray for protection before you practice. So you pray for protection before you practice prayer. You pray for protection before you do a healing session. You pray for protection before you meditate. Like, it's really kind of good to be in a state of pray without ceasing, where you pray all the time. And I kind of like to do that myself, like just throughout the day. I'm constantly checking in with God and just saying, you know, seeing what's up and being aware, having that self-awareness of what's going on. Anytime I kind of have a funny feeling, like I've got things pretty well set up here. I have, and I'm all about like using crosses for protection and things like that. So again, it's not about fear though. Like I think I need to hammer that in so hard. It's not about fear. It's just about awareness, because you have to have awareness to be able to have the discernment. So Isa, does that explain? Is that a good way for you to set up your session? hopefully that's good. And that's really how I would do everything. So PPP, pray before you practice, pray for protection before you practice. So whatever that is for you, whatever prayer is for you, that's what you do. Because again, I'm not here to be religious. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or what to think. You have to decide what's right for you. Use your own gut instinct, like use that gut instinct, right? And know that that you're working with the highest and best energy. So again, that's okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna wrap it up for tonight. I will leave this up. If you guys have any more questions, again, let's have the dialogue, let's have the questions, because I feel like that's the best way we learn. And in the group, this is a safe place. So no question is dumb, no question is off limits. Like literally, let's ask. And if we need to get into the biblical stuff, then we'll look there. Like if that's what resonates with people, that's where we'll go. Like but again, I feel like I have to be back in that space of be careful of trickery and use discernment, because I think even the Bible can get twisted. Like I know that the Bible's on purpose, and I know that what's in there is truth, and I really hang on the words that Jesus said. Like that's my go-to, right? Because you've got to remember it's been revised. It was the first form of government. Like there's all of these things. So this is where you as a soul, you need to tap into your own divine, your own divinity, your own knowing, so that you know that you're only connecting with the highest and best. Okay, so again, highest and best divine love. All right, love you guys. I'm seeing lots of hearts. Thank you so much for the hearts, because again, these are never the fun videos to do, but I know they're really important. So, all right, love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.